Right.
10 million, takes you like, took me exactly 2 years. Then the next jump
Right.
goes a little bit faster.
Yeah, and is it you're happy with the amount of time it's requiring, or is it?
I'm really happy with Fairway for those guys. You get bogged down in all the fund administration and member accounting. There's certain software that we use for that. So it's,
By the way, I just realized I only made one copy of this, a list of questions. So I don't know if you guys can you?
Let's see. Well, let me just see.
It's not long, but they're just big talking points, and we'll just riff off it.
Yeah, that's usually what we end up doing. More often than not, we end up doing a real estate related show, especially like Rob Spinoza from RPM will be here.
What about Rob?
Rob, when Rob's a co-host or Patty Cohn's a co-host, we're talking about real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
Rob's a good guy.
Yes.
Didn't know. This is a small community. There's so many people that I run across that know you, and I'm sure vice versa.
So we're talking. So joint ventures is the topic. Okay.
Switch here that I started this thing. Yeah, did I start it? I did. Okay. So, just to kind of refresh, it's been a while since you've been here.
Yes.
And
here's Mike. I don't know if you want. This is a bio. You can read as little or as
we
much.
don't really have so much. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is, I'm just going to introduce you as the super real estate lawyer. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's also I was selected for super lawyers too. So.
I did see that. Yeah. Is that like an annual thing, or is that like a?
Nice. So what we want to do, because we are filming for television, look to the camera once in a while. You're really looking to us. You got it pretty easy because when you want to be about that far away.
Keep the microphone.
Yeah, almost, yeah. And if you are going to talk to Mark, you can pivot like this.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do that because the mic won't pick it up.
Sure.
Okay, and set that up for you there. Let's see here, and we want to, because it's radio too, keep the audience engaged. So we, a little inflection in the voice, a little excitement, that sort of thing.
Inflection.
Yes, but just don't pound on the desk.
Inflection's better than monotone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we just don't want to pound on the desk because sometimes these things will shake and they'll get disconnected.
If I'm doing that, let me, just give me a sign.
Okay. All right, and I've got headphones for you there. And one of the nice things about the headphones is that you'll notice if you talk like this, you'll be able to tell, oh, I can't do that. Whereas if you do this, you can hear yourself.
I like it because it really helps with the voice inflection too. It's kind of nice to hear your voice, the feedback, and then you kind of know how you're sounding on the radio, and whether you have to do some exaggerated voice inflection.
If I'm wrestling some of these pages, is that going to get picked up by the mic?
No, it's not too much. I mean, there is by television.
Television mic.
Mic right here for television.
The television mic picks it up. The radio mic doesn't. But we live with anything.
Just brought my laptop. Okay.
Okay. You guys ready? All right. So, okay. Let's just start right into it. Here we go. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing on Talk 910. I'm your host, Edward Brown. I'm proud to have as my co-host Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money, one of California's fastest growing mortgage investment firms. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Now write that number down because you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. Now the vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, which is located 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. By the way, they've been doing a lot of renovations, so check them out. Check them out at lighthouseresortandmarina.com. And the vacations are free. Their only request is a $75 cleaning fee to cover the housekeeping expenses. Now, I really should have done this with women rather than us guys here, and I'll introduce our other gentleman here in just a second. But our trivia theme is frightful fashions. So you have to go back and you'll just go and get into the questions. Our website is bestofinvesting.com. We're also on television. We got Mr. Kramer here going ahead and videoing us. We're on television, Comcast Channel 26 and AT&T Channel 99, Saturdays at noon, Sundays at 6 p.m. Check us out on TV also. Now today we have a special guest who's been with us in the past, and just like Superman, he does have super in front of his name. He's a super real estate real estate attorney.
Yeah, not
tax. That's your
super
wife.
lawyer.
Does it? Yeah, super lawyer. Jeff Lerman. Jeff, welcome back to the Best of Investing.
Thank you very much. Always good to see you guys and be here.
Excellent. Okay, now, Mark, I know that Jeff's given you a few little questions there. Go ahead.
Well, Jeff brought a topic for us today to talk about, and it's real estate related, and it has to do with joint ventures, real estate joint ventures. And so, Jeff, let's just go right into it. Why is joint venture, why is the topic of joint venture important to real estate investors?
Well, I think maybe the best way to answer that question is to explain the genesis of this topic, why it's a topic that I selected for today. And what I do, in addition to everything else I'm doing in my practice, is I also teach in front of various groups of real estate investors. And one of them, one of the largest is the Dave Lindahl organization, which is they're, I think, one of the best ones out there. And I teach his private money boot camp. I teach syndication. And syndication, for most of the people who are listening to this, understand it involves the securities laws and is a very complicated topic. And by the time they really understand it, their heads are exploding because it's just, it's complicated. I would say, you mentioned tax. I would say next to tax law, or right up there with tax law, securities law is one of the most complicated areas of the law. And so what I have, and during the course of me teaching that, I explain to people how important it is in the money-raising process, which all investors have to be concerned about at some point, that all of the hurdles and obstacles that you need to contend with if you are going to be doing a syndication. And one of them is that you have to have a pre-existing substantive relationship with somebody before you actually ask them for money.
And that's very subjective, isn't it?
Well, it is subjective. There are some guidelines, but no black letter law or great guidance on it. And but people come up to me all the time at the end of this portion of the talk, and they say, well, what do I do now if I have a deal I need money for? Now, securities laws are actually not only counterintuitive, but they don't make sense, period. And for most of the way that we, you and I, and all investors go about doing their deals, they usually don't go out and raise money before they get the deal or get their investors in line. They usually go out, no matter how much we explain this, they go out and they find the deal first, and then they say, okay, I need to know that I got the money within whatever, 15 or 30 days, otherwise my deposit's going to go hard. And then they try scurrying around to get the money, and that's always a challenge. So they come up to me and say, so now what do I do? And I say, well, the bad news is, and when you are trying to do a syndication and raise money, you can't pitch a deal under the securities laws. You cannot pitch a deal that you already have under contract. You can't. You can talk to, like, if I want to talk to you, Edward, about investing, I can't say, by the way, I got this deal. Can I, let me talk to you about that. I can talk to you about, in general, about I'm an investor and I can take your information, and then there's like a 30-day waiting and all that.
Okay, well, I know that people get. Well, I generally deal in Berkeley, and I generally deal on the street, and I generally deal in $500,000 to $510,000 deals.
Exactly. So what I said to him is that, well, what you can do with that deal is you can use a joint venture approach as opposed to a syndication, and that lit him up. And he says, really? Well, what's the difference? And that's really, I think, the main point that anybody listening to this really needs to understand. It is that it's all about, at the end of the day, how you get deals done. I mean, anybody who's listening to this particular topic, if this is all, we're going to be talking about real estate, but actually this whole topic can apply to any kind of any kind of business venture.
Okay.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're trying to raise money because they're doing, some new business, the securities laws apply to that too.
Absolutely.
And so this same strategy can apply to that as well. It just so happens that my main focus is working with investors, although we also do corporate law and we work with businesses as well. So, long-winded answer to that first question, what's a joint venture? A joint venture is the coming together of two or more people for a business venture. That's my definition of it. That is the definition of it in a general sense, in any law book.
But I'm just thinking. I'm listening. I'm thinking. Okay, I'm the audience listening. I'm thinking. Okay, if I wanted to raise money for a deal, just calling it a joint venture, I'm still doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, you can't. The law doesn't work like that. You can't call it a joint venture and then assume that it is going to be treated as a joint venture if it ever comes in front of a court. You need to know the distinction from a legal standpoint between a joint venture that does not need to comply with the securities laws and when you do need to comply with the securities laws.
Yeah, because if I have, generally, again, I'll have the deal first, and now I'm looking for a business partner or joint venture person. So I'm going to pitch, let's say to Mark, hey Mark, I've got this house that I'm going to have in contract, and let's say I've already got it under contract.
Right.
Right, you already tied it up.
I've already tied it up, and now I'm looking for a joint venture partner.
Right.
Okay. So what am I going to do differently that is legal from that end?
Okay, so first of all, the primary difference, what makes a joint venture as opposed to a syndication, is if all of the venture partners, all of them, are actively involved in the deal, as opposed to passively. And the general distinction is that if an investor, if all they're doing is giving you a check, giving you money, and they're waiting for you to turn a profit for them, and this goes all the way back to in our business, the famous Supreme Court case of SEC v. Howey. That's just it's if you're going to be in this space, you're going to hear that case name. And so if that's all somebody's doing, in general, if they're just giving you money and they're going to be looking to make a profit off of your activities, then that's a passive investor, not an active investor.
And generally, like syndications will say, general partner, limited partner, and or LLC managing member, and it'll specifically legally distinct what rights and duties the people have.
True.
So they can, for the managing decision, because again, if I want to be the manager and decide, and all I want is Mark's money, and I'll make all the decisions, I can see that's a quote syndication.
Right. With
this joint venture, does everybody have an equal say as to or a percentage of whatever they put in?
Well, it doesn't go to an equal percentage. That's not a requirement. You can have percentages however you want to allocate them. What it goes to really is, again, the level of activity they have, not only as specified in the document, but also in actuality. Because if it were that easy to circumvent the securities laws, to just create a document that says somebody's actively involved, but then they're actually not, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, like, okay, Mark, I'm going to do this with you, and I'm going to say, you're going to open the mail, or you're going to answer the phone, or you're going to do something, or you're going to go to the store and get me stamps for this. I mean, that's obviously not
and
really
the audience
active.
should understand here that where this comes up is if things go wrong and you end up in a quarrel with your partner, whatever you want to call him, your money guy, and there's a dispute. It's not necessarily that there's somebody auditing these things out there that you're going to get caught by the SEC or by the government. It's really, I mean, isn't that the truth? Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately when this is going to come up is if you have a disgruntled investor and he goes to a lawyer and he says, I'm unhappy and I want to know what my rights and remedies are. And so I do litigation as well as transactions, okay? And if somebody comes to me and with that request, that's one of the first things I'm going to ask. Let me see a copy of your agreement and let me understand exactly what role you played in this deal. And if there was a violation of the securities laws, then that is going to create a significant overlay of additional rights and remedies that you otherwise wouldn't have.
All right, so we are in the studio here with Jeff Lerman, who's a super real estate lawyer. We're going to go to our first commercial break. We're going to ask a trivia question. When we come back, we got some more interesting questions about JVs,
Joint ventures,
and
syndications.
Before we do, because I want to make sure I do remember, how do people get a hold of you if they want to ask more questions about joint ventures or real estate law?
Best way for people to reach us, they can go to our website, which your listeners should have an easy time remembering because it's, for most of them, it's who they are. It's Real Estate Investor Law. So there's just a law at the end of it. realestateinvestorlaw.com. And if they want to call us, they can reach us with our toll-free number at 800-553-7626.
Very good. Okay. So here's our first commercial break, and again, the theme is frightful fashions. All right. This type of hairstyle was worn by many rappers in the 1980s to the early 1990s. The sides of the hair were shaved off, and the top of the hair was kept very long and tall. What is this hairstyle called? All right, we're just kind of silly here with these questions today, but that's okay, because all this joint venture real estate stuff is a little bit too serious sometimes. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. By the way, you need to call 888-912-1190 to answer that question. The first 3 callers with the correct answer are going to win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Again, here's the question. This type of hairstyle was worn by many rappers in the 1980s to the early 1990s. The sides of the hair were shaved off, and the top of the hair was kept very long and tall. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. We'll be right back. All right.
Kramer used to have that hairstyle.
That's right, I did, and then I had the top of it green.
So we're off. We're not recording anymore, right? Or we are.
Well, he's doing
We're
this.
not recording.
Okay, but we're still.
What is that? Mohawk?
This is like one segment,
Yeah.
so we can kind of just talk.
So
But
we can talk.
I do have that one still going, so don't swear.
It's fine. Is it Mohawk?
I could, yeah,
No, it's not.
it's not.
I thought it was too.
Mohawk. Well, I keep thinking of that guy Kid
Wow.
and Play that had the shave and looked like a racer head or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
that look. I was
Yeah.
maybe Vanilla Ice. You talking about Vanilla Ice? Is that his?
That's
Give me
something
one.
That's similar style.
Give me,
Wow.
give me is one rapper who had the style that you're referring to. Would that be
Follow
it?
rappers up and this answers. I just come up with this.
Where did you get this question from?
It's the internet. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay.
There was a whole,
Rapper.com,
He goes
internet.
to dumbtriviaquestions.com.
Exactly.
there were a whole bunch
hard coming up
of
with trivia,
snowboard people that were the best in the world, and they had that thing up high as they could go, and green and different
Yeah.
colors. And
Wow.
And it's not the
Yeah.
what's that other one that? Come on, what's the one like the country star guys used to have?
Oh, the
Oh,
mullet.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a mullet
Mullet.
either.
not a mullet?
Not a mullet. Yeah.
Mullet and Mohawk. So that's
Yeah.
All right. So this is going to be for the August. This because this will be airing August 1st, which is.
I'm embarrassed to say I didn't realize that there was a difference between JV strategy and syndication.
Don't be
Of course, I knew about
embarrassed.
syndications.
I can't tell you how most people in the audience that I speak in front of, they have no clue about this.
Well, I'll tell you, I was in the securities business for many, many, many years, and the answer with the NASD, which is now FINRA or something, is everything's a security. Unless
Well,
you can specifically point
right.
as to legally why it's not.
Right.
You have to pull it out.
Right.
It's
Right.
just like, oh, security, oh, security. Drive you crazy.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article by, I think it was in CEB or some very respected legal reference, either a magazine or a book, and the author wrote that all LLCs are securities. And I said, really? That's not my understanding. And so I called the author and I said, I didn't realize that. What authority do you have for that? And I explained to him what I just told you guys, and he said, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess if they are actively involved, then that wouldn't be a security. You know, he thought that automatically all LLCs.
Well, because you usually have an LLC managing member, but I guess you can have more than one LLC managing
You can.
member. So
Not
in that
uncommon
case,
at all.
yeah.
And you can have member managers too. So, yeah.
Very interesting. All right. Continue on a little bit here.
Yep.
Here we go.
What should we dovetail into? Which question do you like?
Why do you like it?
Here we go. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn, president of Pacific Private Money. When we get to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. This type of hairstyle was worn by many rappers in the mid-1980s to early 1990s. Sides of the hair were shaved off, and the top of the hair was kept very long and tall. What is this hairstyle? And I thought it was a mullet, but that's not the answer.
Or Mohawk?
No, it's high top fade.
High top.
I'm not familiar with that term, but okay. Like you said, I got this from dumbtrivia.com. All right, so we are in the studio here with super real estate attorney Jeff Lerman. And Mark, you got another question for
Sure.
me.
So we're talking about raising capital for your real estate venture, and Jeff in the last segment was talking about a little bit about syndications versus joint ventures. And Jeff, why do you like the joint venture strategy?
a lot of reasons, and and these are just a sample of some of the reasons why I think it's such a great all-purpose strategy. It can so many of us who do real estate investing. I so often find, again, I'm out there and I see investors all the time where I'm
You're in the
speaking.
trenches.
Yeah, and my clients, but also speaking in front of hundreds of people, and I really get to understand what their challenge. I ask them, tell me what your biggest challenge is as a real estate investor, and the most common ones are all challenges which this strategy can address. For example, for a lot of people, especially these days, it's a proof of funds letter. You go in these days. This is right now the market is hotter than hot, and we're broadcasting this from one of the hottest markets in the world. And so increasingly, sellers are requiring proof of funds for a buyer to put a deal under contract.
Which, for the audience, that just means that they want to know that you're going to close.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
where's
They
the
would-
money? Show
Where's the
proof
money?
of money.
Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of people don't have a proof of funds letter that shows that they have, like if you're buying let's say you're buying a $3 million deal, you got to come up with, say, let's see, so 20% of a typical deal.
$600,000.
Yeah, but even that won't normally do it because they want to know you get the financing.
Well,
You're
no.
going to need an all-cash buyer if you're going to.
Well, at a minimum, they want to see that you got enough for the down payment. And so for this, I mean, if you don't have a proof of funds letter, then you can partner up with somebody who's got stronger finances than you do.
Sure.
If you don't have the down payment to buy a new property, same thing. You find a partner who's got the money. If you're fully invested in other deals, a lot of people are fully invested in their deals, and so they say that because I ran into a guy at one of these conferences, and we were talking just in general. He didn't know I was going to be speaking later that day on this topic. And I was just getting to know him. And I said, tell me about what your biggest challenge is, because I'm always really curious.
Sure.
And he said, well, right now, I'd love to do other deals, but I already have a bunch of deals, and I own 100% of all of them. I got all my money in there. And I said, well, why don't you just try to pull some of that money out by a reverse joint venture? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you've got the best pitch out there. You've already bought a deal you felt so good about that you put 100% of your own money into it. Everybody else here, most of the other people here, are trying to raise money for a deal that they don't really understand yet. So if you come into somebody and say, I've got history, this thing is seasoned, I believed in it, and then you try to raise money for that deal, that's a pretty compelling pitch. So you can use a joint venture to do that. And as soon as I told him that, his eyes just lit up, and he said, wow, I never realized it, and he's stayed in touch with me since then, and he's told me how this one strategy has ended up in him redoing his entire portfolio and pulling money out and leveraging it and being able to
basically, he just took on a new partner for each property.
Right.
Effectively. Yeah.
pull money out. If you got bad credit, you can find a partner with better credit. You can't qualify for the loan. You get a partner who can't qualify for the loan. You can't afford to keep your current properties. Again, find a partner you can bring in.
Which is interesting because one would think, gee, if I own 15 properties all free and clear, I might be able to get a loan. But some banks get really wiggy about the fact if you own too many properties, or if you have too many loans. Like maybe some of them he owns free and clear, but other ones he's got loans on. And if you have loans on like 5 properties, they say, forget it, we don't want to get involved.
Jeff, again, on this strategy where this reverse joint venture, the money guy that he's bringing in still needs to be actively involved
Right.
in that investment.
Correct.
So it's not you're not looking for a passive. Again, then you're into the syndication. You can't bring it in as a passive investor.
It depends.
Typical lawyer answer. It depends.
Yeah, every analysis is really fact-based. I know everybody would love to get sort of a one-size-fits-all answer, but that's just not the deal. You can't find, in this business, one of the biggest challenges in general is being able, it's a numbers game, to find a deal. And so a lot of times people say it's impossible to find deals. And so what I found is some different people have different skill sets. Maybe, Mark, you're a guy who your skill set is you got all these relationships, and so you find more deals than you have money. And maybe I'm a lawyer, I'm looking to invest in deals. And so I'm looking for a guy like you that, you bring that to the table, I bring the money to the table. That's a good joint venture. And then, which gets me actually to the last point is, which is true for me, for sure, and I know a lot of other people, and that is, if you're too busy to really spend full time in the real estate investing business. I got a very active law practice, and my biggest challenge in this real estate investing business is I don't have enough time to do what I would do if I was doing real estate investing full time.
You need boots on the ground, basically.
I need people who are, it is a numbers game. I need people who are out there cultivating relationships, and they see the good deals, and they're taking the time to look through the 100 to find the one that makes sense and all that. So everybody has some pressure point that the right joint venture partner, and that's the key, the right joint venture partner.
Oh, yeah, because you hear all the horror stories.
Right. Yeah. There are, and that's, look, in anything, in any strategy has pros and cons. And so does that mean you shouldn't do it? No, it just means that you need to go into it educating yourself as to what the risks and the cons are, and then you take reasonable steps to mitigate those risks. I mean, isn't that what real estate investing is all about?
So what are some of the cons to the joint venture format?
So most of the cons that you're going to encounter, you can effectively mitigate up front and that's a big part of what we do. When I sit with two or more people, the first thing I say is, look, this is a business marriage, and you need to understand a lot about each other before you go forward. And a big part of what I do is through my meetings with them and through a process where I give them a worksheet to get the key information, but then I also meet with them, and a big part of what I do is just watch how they interact together. And if I see people who are interacting in front of me in a way that causes me concern because I see that they're not effectively communicating, or I can just pick up from body language that there's some issues, I'll tell them. I'll say, you guys maybe need to work on your communication skills. Example, I had a client, and he calls me one day, and he had a joint venture partner, and he said, I'm at the office, and my partner just locked me out of the office.
Hold on. That's never a good sign. I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah. And I said, why? And he said, because I have been trying to communicate with you for weeks now, and you've gone dark on me, and this is what I needed to do to get your attention.
Wow.
And so it's like any relationship, there's always warning signs. So communication is key, and there are other things that you look for at the beginning to make sure you are maximizing the chances for success in your joint venture.
I do have a question about that one specific case. Did the person who called you with getting locked out, did he admit or agree, you know what, actually I was hard to get a hold of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I guess it got his attention.
Yeah, and they did end up in at least one big lawsuit. And that's the other thing that people need to understand. Again, my only agenda when I am explaining anything to my clients, whether it's asset protection or syndication or joint ventures, is just to help them make an informed decision. I'm not trying to sell them on anything. That's not my job. And so, I will walk them through, the pros, the cons, and whatever. And if it's not a right fit, then we got a lot of different tools in our tool chest to make a deal work.
Well, one of the things I love about you, Jeff, is the fact that you are a real estate investor, so you understand it well, and you're not a deal killer. Too many attorneys I've run into I think it's because internally they're just afraid of getting sued for malpractice or something, and so they're always trying to kill deals.
Yeah, well, and that is a reality of our business, but the fact that I have been an investor for decades and part of actually a family office situation. I don't know if we should probably define that term. Family office is a multi-generational family business in our situation happens to be real estate investing, and so our family office goes back 50 years. And so I am an investor, I'm a deal maker, and I think that one of the big values that are intangible that I do bring to my client's relationship is a little bit more perhaps experiencing creativity and how you can make a deal happen and get past the inevitable bumps in the road.
Well, that's definitely needed in the real estate business. Again, give out your information in case people want to have interview you.
Yep, Real Estate Investor Law is the website, realestateinvestorlaw.com, and you can reach us toll free at 800-553-762. 553-7626. Sorry about that. And if you're in the 415-415-454-0455.
And we introduced you as Jeff Lerman, the super real estate attorney. How do you get the title super?
Super lawyer is, in our business, it is one of the highest forms of recognition you can get. There's actually one of the largest legal companies in the country. Every year they identify lawyers who are what they call super lawyers. It's given to the top 5% of lawyers, and it is based solely on their nominations by other lawyers, by your peers. And then after you get nominated, then what the company does is they take surveys of all those lawyers, and then they do their own independent investigation of your background and all that stuff. So it's one of the purest forms of acknowledgement out there, and that's why it's one of the more, for lack of a better word, prestigious types of recognitions out there. So yeah, I'm gratified and happy about that. So.
All right, well, stick with us because we're going to turn this over to Mark when we come back, and we know that you've done business with Mark yourself. So, all right, so here we go. Here's our second trivia question. Again, frightful fashions. These were jeans that suburban women liked to wear. They were very high-waisted, and they flattered no part of the human body. What is it? I should have saved this for our women co-host. Sorry, guys. Okay, the first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190. I'm not even going to repeat the question. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best in Investing. We'll be right back.
Long jeans.
That's right. Very good.
As hard as the first one is, that was how easy that was.
That was easy.
I mean, I don't fashion that much. I just know
Well, weren't they accusing Obama of wearing those at some point?
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Not Michelle, but him, right?
Yeah,
Funny.
not Michelle, him.
High-waisted, non-flattering.
Yeah. Is that your little Fitbit thing?
I'm trying it out. I'm not sure I like it, but yeah, I'm going to go to the gym after this and work out and try to do my 10,000 steps a day.
That's right. He was going to meet me at the gym across the street. She wants to try that out.
Do you have an iPhone?
I've got an Android, so I do have the app. And is that an iPhone?
No, that's an Apple Watch. It's an iPod. I mean, it's not an Apple Watch. It's an iPod.
It is.
Yeah, it's an iPod, and that actually measures your steps too.
Nice.
But I didn't have that, but I used to work out with a heart monitor, and what I discovered is after about 30 to 60 days, my results were always pretty much plus or minus, 5-10%, always the same. So I stopped paying attention to them. So
yeah, I don't know that it's that accurate either. I've looked at it a couple of times when I'm looking at the gym. It'll say it's in the 90s, and I know I'm over 100. So it's maybe.
I got frustrated with that thing, so I threw it in the washing machine, went to bed.
Well, what do you want?
10,000 steps.
What are you most
3
interested
minutes.
in? What
You got those too?
Steps, and I'd like
True
to.
blue.
I was hoping I could gauge how long I get my heart rate above a certain.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the way to lose weight. Like
And it does scale
that.
that, so it does.
That's good.
It syncs with the app on your computer and on your smartphone. So
All right.
check that
You're
out.
supposed to go to a certain level for like
Right.
Yeah.
30 seconds and then down 2 minutes or something like that. You don't know.
It's probably the rest of money, but
How much is
tried
it?
out. It's like 100. I think this was 140.
That's not too bad.
I know it's.
Now the Apple Watch, that's a waste of money.
Or Google Glasses.
What do you got for me on the question?
Yes, I'm sorry. I've seen other funds use leverage and gain an extra point in interest, but you don't do that in your fund. Do you think it's too risky? Is there any amount of leverage that makes sense to enhance the yield? I'll start off with that now that we get into what you do for a living. How is that?
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Ready? Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Graham, your host, along with Mark Hahn, president of Pacific Private Money. That's a lot of P's in there.
It is.
Here's the second trivia question. These were jeans that suburban women like to wear. They were very high-waisted, and they flattered no part of the human body. I hated those things. What were they called?
So I guessed mom jeans.
And you were right. Man, you are the fashion guru. Okay, so Mark, we received an email for you. Let's get right into this, then you can explain about what you do and who you are. It says here, I've seen other funds use leverage and gain an extra point in interest, but you don't do that in your fund. Do you think it's too risky? Is there any amount of leverage that might make sense to enhance the yield?
So that is a really sophisticated question from someone who I've guessed has maybe listened to our show more than a few times. So my name again is Mark Hanf. I'm president and broker for a company called Pacific Private Money, based here in the Bay Area, located in Marin. And we are a alternative resource of financing for mostly real estate investors, but and lately some consumers too. We do consumer bridge loans, owner-occupied financing, and fix and flip financing for people who aren't getting bank financing. And there's a lot of reasons why people can't get financing from banks these days. And we've been in business since 2008. We've done roughly 1,000 loan originations totaling a little over $200 million, all to individuals here in the Bay Area, California, for their real estate investment activities, or again, just to help someone close on a real estate deal that maybe bank financing fell through last minute. So there's a strong demand for our product. And for many years, we were doing these notes and using individual capital to fund those loans. Investors, many of whom had done private lending in the past. I created a database of these people that I met at various events, and they would invest in the notes that we originated. Over time, more and more people started to come to us via word of mouth saying, hey, Mark, I'd like to invest in these loan products. But clearly, the less sophisticated people who really couldn't compete with the more full-time real estate lenders were left kind of locked out, at least in our business. And so what a lot of companies like ours who do these privately funded loans start is what's called a mortgage pool fund. So we started in 2013 a mortgage pool fund that we call the Pacific Private Money Fund, and we pool investor capital together and use that money to fund loans. So we still work with individual investors, but as our fund is growing, more and more of the loans that we originate at Pacific Private Money are funded through the Pacific Private Money Fund. Now, past performance is no promise of future results, but for the last 25 consecutive months, we've had a cash payout to our investors at over 8%, anywhere between 8 and 8.5, I think is the range. But right around the low 8% range is the target. We designed actually the fund to produce that very rate based on the types of loans that we make to our clients. We generally charge 10%, which is a lot of money for a loan. They're expensive loans, a couple of points and 10% note rate. But the reason why people would pay 10% for money is because they need it fast, and they can't get it from a bank. So we're fast, we're friendly, it's an easier process. It's just not cheap money, but it's a great plan B for people who need a plan B. When plan A is go to the bank, get bank financing when you can.
Sure.
But plan
In fact,
B,
you even probably recommend they do that right off the bat. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. If you can get the money from a bank is always going to be less expensive. But with all the new regulations surrounding lending today, thanks to Dodd-Frank, banks are taking longer and longer to approve loans. And we were talking just about earlier about how competitive the real estate market is here in the Bay Area. And if you want to make an aggressive offer to buy a home, and you've been trying and missing out, and you decide, well, I'm going to make an aggressive offer, no contingencies, all cash, close in 10 days. A lot of those guys end up calling us going, hey, can you do a fast loan for us? And the answer typically is yes. And usually those borrowers are very strong. So anyway, that's a little bit of background on what we do. We've got this mortgage pool fund that we use to fund the majority of our loans today. And the investors in that fund, they usually give us a call and we send them our private placement memorandum. We do have documentation that you need to look at before you can be considered an investor, and you need to qualify, meaning you have to be a certain type of investor. We only accept accredited investors into our fund. The definition of accredited is having a $1 million net worth or higher, not including the equity in your home. So if you qualify for that, you can call us and get information about our fund. Now, our fund is a non-leveraged fund. So getting back to the original question that listener asked, which was, do you use leverage to achieve the yield that you produce? I think that was the question, basically. It was a question about leveraged funds. And what a leveraged fund is let's say you raise $10 million in capital, and then based on that capital, you go out and find a bank, and there are banks out there, and maybe you get a $2.5 million line of credit or warehouse line that you will also use to fund loans. That would be roughly a 25% leverage. It's a little bit less because if you add it together and do the math, it's a little bit less. But just for simplicity's sake, that'd be roughly a 25% leveraged fund. The risk in that is that if the market goes down substantially again, then you've got that issue with having to pay the bank loan off first before you satisfy your creditor, or not creditor, your member, your shareholder capital. And so there's inherently risk anytime you borrow money or use leverage, particularly with a fund. So we decided on the onset that we would have a non-leveraged fund. Now, because we don't use leverage to boost the yield, our yields, there are some funds out there that produce higher yields. There's a fund in Southern California that I'm very familiar with, for example, that produces close to a 10% yield.
But it's not true yield from the standpoint that if anything goes wrong, the bank gets paid first.
Right. They do that with a 20% credit facility, and that credit facility costs between 4 and 5%. So they're able to leverage that or arbitrage the difference between that bank money and the money.
And again, as long as all the loans are paying, it's okay. But once loans, for whatever reason, run into problems, you can start snowballing the effect negatively.
So we get calls from people who ask us about our fund yield, and we say, well, we're paying right now a little bit over 8% is our current yield payout. And they'll say, I heard about this fund in Arizona that pays 12%, or a fund in Seattle that pays 11%, or and it's true in other states, hard money loan rates are higher, and also in other funds they may be using leverage to generate a higher yield to the members, and it's not in and of itself make it a risky investment, but it's certainly riskier than having a non-leveraged fund. So again, in Pacific Private Money, we have a non-levered pure yield fund.
And a lot of times, if I understand it correctly, the funds that use leverage, the banks are not tied into any one specific loan. They have a claim against the entire fund.
They do. Yeah, that's typically how it's arranged.
Mark, are you still investing, using the fund to invest only in the Bay Area?
We have some regional diversification. So the answer is no. We do have some Southern California loans, and we even have some loans on the books now that are hypothecations of first position liens in other states. So it's a small percentage, but I feel comfortable with a little bit of regional diversification, not having the entire portfolio all be in the Bay Area.
Well, just by way of endorsement, Edward, you mentioned that Mark and I have done business in the past. We're doing business, and that's true. We actually, I think we originally met through one of the clubs out there.
We did.
And
years ago.
Right, and then you became a client, and then I started investing in your trust deeds, the individual trust deeds, and never lost a penny. Thank you very much for that. And
it's always helpful.
Yeah, and I will say, just for the listeners that might not already know you, I mean, getting to know somebody through the attorney-client relationship is a very unique way to do it, because you really get to, I think, a unique insight into the character of the person you're dealing with, because there is that I guess the fact that you're within that safe space of the attorney-client relationship, where you really just hear about everything. And so one thing that always impressed me about Mark was his character, and so I felt good about investing. Again, never lost a penny, and now we have invested. I think we were one of the first investors in your fund, and
One of the charter members, absolutely.
yep,
Thank you for that.
and so we've been. He's right. I mean, every month the check comes, and so it's a great way. One of the best things that I like about it, which you didn't get to yet, is the challenge for myself, and I think this is probably true of anybody else who's in my position, is you can find maybe a higher yielding instrument if you're going for an individual trustee at one at a time. But then when it pays off, then how long does it take you to find another one? And then if you factor in that downtime, then your effective yield on your money goes down. So we'd much rather, and plus the time it takes to sort through the various deals. So the main thing that we liked about going to the fund, and actually I think if I remember correctly that I called you at one particular time and said, "Hey Mark, I got an idea for a fund." And you said, "Well, funny you should say that. It just so happens I'm just about to go out with this."
Go live.
I think it gets past. It's especially again for busy people. It's the notion that you can. We made a decision 2 years ago, and that's the last time we thought about it, and we get a consistent yield all the time. So I think it's a great diversification of your portfolio if you like the conservative risk-adjusted return that you just do first trustees, right? In the
We
fund?
do some very well secured seconds too. There people approach us in Marin and San Francisco that have just tremendous amounts of equity in a small first, and we love loans that are 30 or 40% combined loan
Right.
value, and they're great.
But the other thing the other reason you got my money is because I had enough conversations with you where I got comfortable with I think you're a relatively conservative underwriter, and I know that you look at every deal that comes in, and so I had that comfort level as well. I've invested with other trustee brokers, and some are more aggressive, or some I just don't know their track record. But anybody who's thinking about this kind of a investment, I'm just this is an unsolicited testimonial endorsement from me for whatever it's worth.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And so, we're talking a little bit about mortgage investing this segment, and we've talked about mortgage investing a lot on the Best of Investing, and it's really just an alternative investment strategy to help you boost the yields that you earn on your retirement portfolio. We work with people who have self-directed 401ks. We can take money in many forms, obviously through your trust and savings account, but many 401k or self-directed IRA
That's where mine is, IRA.
Yeah, we'll use that strategy to invest in these mortgage-secured investments, whether it's an individual note, as Jeff was just talking about, or the mortgage pool fund. Both have their pros and cons. We're experts in both investment strategies, and we'd be happy to discuss more with you. And for more information about that, you can visit our website, of course. It's pacificmoneyfund.com. That's pacificmoneyfund.com. Or give us a call, and we'll supply you with some information. We're at 415-883-2150. That's 415-883-2150.
And when we come back, I want to get into deal of the week, because if I'm listening, if I'm one of the fairly new listeners and I hear all this great, interest rate, I'm still thinking, give me an example of a deal. I mean, why are people wanting to borrow at 10% interest? I understand, banks are not freely giving out the money anymore, but they want to hear real examples. So we come back, maybe give us a real example. Okay, here's our third and final trivia question. This trend in the 1980s involved using chemicals to strip the top layer of blue dye off of spots on jeans, allowing the white underneath to show in those spots. Okay? What is this process called? All right, that's a long one there. All right, call 888-912-1190 to answer that question. Stay with us. The Best of Investing. We'll be right back.
Nerd fashion trivia.
Wait, what was the first part of that, and what year? What?
Let's see, in the trend in the 80s.
Oh, I was going to say tie-dye, but that was the 60s.
That was the 60s.
Stonewash jeans or something.
Close.
Close. Stonewash, stoner.
Do you have any special deals of the week?
Well, I could talk about, I won't mention his name, but I could talk about Jeremy's deal. We're doing that deal for him. I mean, here's a guy that has a tax return that shows he made over $1 million. He's a mortgage broker, made over $1 million last year, and he can't get bank financing because he's almost a year removed from being 3 years past a foreclosure on an investment property.
Exactly. That's a perfect example.
So the deal of the week is to come up with a deal where the people have come to you for help.
Well, he likes me to say, like, talk about an interesting loan that I
Yeah.
funded recently or that I'm working on.
Mhm.
And we've got we're always working on many different deals, and a lot of the more interesting ones. And I wish I had more of the information. We're looking at one right now that is 15% loan to value, but I don't have the details on it. So something Mike just picked up on the phone today was somebody needs to borrow against a property they own at 15% loan to value. So
Okay, so we have 8 minutes and 38 seconds left.
short. Oh, it's a
Yeah.
short,
Yeah,
short
short.
segment.
All right. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt. And when we cut to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question. This trend in the 1980s involved using chemicals to strip the top layer off blue dye-off of spots on jeans. I don't know if I wrote that correctly. Allowing the white underneath to show in spots. What was this process called?
What was it, like stone washing? Or
Close.
That's the way I do my laundry. Oh.
Yeah, that's what you do your laundry.
I didn't know there was actually a name for it.
Yeah,
I
I
was
can't
just
remember.
Put
messing
some
with it.
rocks in the washing machine and it beats the dirt out.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so Mark, we talked a little bit about mortgage investing, what you do, decent interest rates. Give us an example, deal of the week, what are you working on?
So, example of why someone would come to Pacific Private Money and borrow money for a real estate transaction at 10%. I mean, the listener might think, well, that's absurd. Why would you ever do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons why people do it. That includes real estate investors and or contractors that have bad credit. And a lot of people who were all in real estate when the market turned were losing properties left and right, and some of them are still heavily impacted FICOs based on maybe a bankruptcy or multiple foreclosures or short sales. Those people are not bank financeable, and so if they want to leverage as an investment strategy, they're going to need to look at private or hard money. Now, we did a transaction recently. In fact, it's going to close next week for a person who came to us, and when he sent in his loan application and his tax returns. Now, we don't always get tax returns, but this guy wanted to lead with strength. He showed us his tax returns. He made $1.1 million last year and paid over $350,000 in taxes. Well, the challenge is with this buyer, and he's looking for a loan to buy a new home, a nice home in Northern California. And his challenge is he had an investment property that went into foreclosure and then ultimately a short sale less than 3 years ago. And so for many conventional bank lenders today, they will not make you a loan until you've had at least 3 years go by on a foreclosure or short sale. So we're looking at making this gentleman what we call our 11-month bridge loan, which allows us to make him a purchase loan up to 70%, and he can make interest-only payments to us with no prepayment penalty. So as soon as he's able to get that bank financing, he believes he will within the next 6 months because he's about ready to hit that 3-year anniversary. He'll get that bank financing and pay us off, and that's not that unusual. The other situation that happens, and we've done many of these lately, are also these bridge or short-term loans, and that is someone who is living in a home, wants to upsize or downsize. They want to buy that next house first before they sell the existing house.
Well, in this crazy market, you don't want
right.
to
You don't want to have
be
to,
homeless.
Yeah, you don't want to be homeless or have to move into an apartment and move twice. Well, the problem with that is it used to be easier 10 years ago to get a second loan for a second home. Well, nowadays most banks will look at your income, and if your debt-to-income ratio with 2 mortgages is over 43%, they're going to go, sorry. And so your only option at that point is to look at a privately funded or hard money bridge loan. And again, we do that a lot. So we help people acquire that target property, and then as soon as they're able to sell their other home or refinance us out, they pay us off. Again, there's no prepayment penalty, so we're happy if they pay us off in 60 days or 6 months, whatever works for them.
Do you have a minute for me to ask you I got a client, I was just talking to him today, and they want to buy a property. I think it's a single family, but no, I think it might be a sixplex.
Yeah.
and they can't go to a conventional lender because the lender is requiring that no rehab be required in order to make the loan. It's got to be done. And so in that scenario, they're actually talking about bringing in a money partner who they're going to give about 20% of the deal to just to get the money they need to do the rehab.
And that may be too expensive
and
rather
that-
than going to
Right,
our
so that's my
company.
question. So they could go to you instead,
Absolutely.
and they could pro forma about, what, 10% the cost of funds on something like that?
Well, and again, it depends on the loan to value. It could be slightly less, but figure
No,
on average.
what would be the maximum LTV you would do for
We would
something like
normally
that?
go on an acquisition, 70% is our comfort level for maximum loan to value on the purchase, and that would be, like you said, around 10%. And the points would be dependent on the size of the loan. The larger the loan, the points start to go down a little bit. So somewhere between 2 and 3 points. And generally, we like to see on deals like that involving income property, we usually like to see a minimum number of months that they might guarantee, like 3 or 4. But that's not a deal killer either. If they, depending on how quickly they think they could get out, we might be able to even get a no prepayment penalty for them, which after you factor in the cost of the interest and points, might actually be cheaper than a 20% partner.
So you wouldn't go 90% of costs, huh?
Maybe if they cross collateral.
If we had other collateral, we could. Yes,
Uh-huh.
we could. If the combined collateral value was such that our exposure was under 70%, but normally we're not able to go.
Got it.
Yeah, and it also does it on purchase, not looking at the after repair value. Looks at a lot of
Right.
So in these last few minutes, I just wanted to say I'm also a client of Jeff Lerman, and a lot of you listeners out there probably heard his name before. If you've ever been to a real estate event or part of a real estate investment group, Jeff has probably spoken in front of that group. He speaks all over California, and I am surprised, being in the business, how many people go out and raise money from private individuals. They go to real estate meetup groups or real estate events, and they're always looking to raise capital and never thinking that maybe they should go to an attorney and kind of design in advance the way they're going to do that. Do they have an LLC? What are the rules and what are the regulations around that? Because look, it is really dangerous if you go out and raise capital from strangers, people you don't have already a prior relationship with, and you blow it, you lose money or something goes wrong, and you end up being sued. You don't have much to stand on. This could ruin you.
Or even actually, you don't even have to get to the point where you get sued. There may be some decisions you have to make. And so that's where you need the attorneys or ahead of time some kind of.
So for example, my mortgage pool fund is a syndication. I spent a lot of money with a specialized firm. It cost over $60,000 to put that sucker together, but it was worth every penny because it's designed correctly and it provides a modicum of comfort to people who read the documentation. Same thing with an LLC that I put together for my own personal investing. I had Jeff put that together for me, and again, it's worth the money. It's tempting to go pay $500 to get an online LLC, and it'll have all the wrong information in there, and it's not going to protect you if things go wrong.
Okay, so we're just going to have to cut out here. Mark, again, give us information out to the club.
PacificPrivateMoney.com or 415-883-2150.
Okay, because you're still accepting money for your fund if people qualify.
Absolutely, it's still open if you qualify.
Okay, Jeff Lerman, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Super attorney.
Always a
We're
pleasure.
going to have you back again. All right, so here's our thoughts for the day. Earl Warren, wasn't he like a important
Chief Justice.
Judge, there you go. He said, "I always turn to the sports pages first, which records people's accomplishments. The front page has nothing but man's failures." It's true.
Nice.
And sometimes I feel like Robert Frost when he said, "I just as soon play tennis with the net down." That's true. Okay, tune in next week to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long. That's right.
Nice.
Good job, guys.
Hey, that was good. Lots of information packed in
Yeah.
an hour.
Yeah.
Kramer, you're the man once again.
received.